Welcome to GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, aka the Going North Podcast, where authors from around the world help you realize that success is tangible. You'll leave with at least one new piece of inspiration or information to help you keep going north every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Going North podcast, we're bringing some super special, awesome humans from all across the globe. We got another fabulous person, courtesy of my man, all the way from the magical land of Canada. The Candy Man himself, the rapper himself. I was messing with you. He ain't either of them things. It's the mighty Mickey Mickelson, y'all. That's right. He's hooked me up with another super special, awesome human, folks, because today's guest in particular, if you love the Melanie Safka interview and if you love the Brigitte Mars interview, you're probably going to love this interview too, because today's guest, an award-winning author, journalist, activist, and teacher whose core values revolve around individual empowerment. That's right, folks. It's the real IE. It's not Internet Explorer. It's individual empowerment. And this wonderful lady right here has so many wonderful works out there and so many that are going to be in the works in the future, just to name a couple. House of the Moon, Surviving the 60s, narrative nonfiction that's received 5-star reviews. That's right, folks, 5 magical stars, and even historical novels about the lives and influences of women marginalized throughout history. So let's give it up for the one, the only true DC that's not a capital, the one, the only Donna Conrad. How you doing today, Donna?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing great too, even with some tiger stripes that are invisible.
Okay. Whatever you say.
That's right. Hey, you're feeling great. I'm feeling great too.
Oh, got it. Sorry, I was a bit slow on the bump thing there.
Hey, it's all good. Folks know the corn cobs are usual occurrence here. That's right. A corn cob for every doorknob. That's right. But hey, it's not about corn cobs. It's about the delightful Donna.
I want to hear this transition. Come on.
Oh man, but it's not about corn cobs. It's about the delightful Donna. So my feeling in any cavities I missed about you.
Oh, let's see. Well, no, that about does it. It's been great talking to you. Next time. Well, I lived a long life so far. Hope it's going to be longer. And yeah, all those things have just come from surviving the 60s. If you made it through the 60s, you came away with a lot of skills, interpersonal skills and personal skills, and the ability to make some good decisions and still mess up all the time.
Well, I wouldn't say mess up all the time because you're actually happily married for 44 years and counting, right?
Is that amazing? That is amazing. I am lucky and wise. I'd say we both are. Well, my husband and I. You're wise too. I'll give you that.
Woohoo! Alrighty. It feels good to be wise and chocolatey. That's what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. Best way to go.
Oh, yeah, that's right. No candy wrappers involved either. So, my goodness. So, surviving the 60s, probably one of the most impactful, influential decades on the planet Earth, and you survived it. So, my goodness, with all the wonderful stories in your book, well, even before I already mentioned the book, like what inspired the cover? Was there demon possession involved in the story that I haven't gotten to yet?
Actually, when the book first came out, it was with a different publisher. And they came up with this, and if I had a picture, I'd showed it to you, but it had this like psychedelic cover and, with the yellow and orange and everything on it. And then it had a picture of me at 18 in a black miniskirt, which was pretty cool, with my high black boots and all that. And the feedback they got was people thought it was just a happy, fun, psychedelic romp through the 60s, and people were getting a little traumatized when they pick up the book, and it was really dark and a lot of violence and sexual abuse and this type of stuff. And they were like, well, this is not what we expected. So this is actually my cover concept, because in the very first chapter, which, to give a warning to people, takes place in a Hells Angels party in the woods when I'm 18, and then flips back to when I'm 14, so it just covers 4 years. But I compare my life to a cloud of smoke and say that and it happened to be from opium at the time. And I said, I compare myself to that. I feel a kinship with that opium cloud, not able to hold my own in the world that surrounds me. And plus, there's a whole lot of smoking pot and hash and other things throughout the book. And so the idea of the smoke um, fading into surviving in the 60s was really my concept. And I think they did a great job on the cover. So that isn't a demon. That actually is hash being smoked on that set.
So hash black instead of hash browns, huh?
Anyway, you can get it.
Oh my goodness. Well, glad you're still alive through all of that, because my goodness, like, yeah. And it is kind of interesting here, and you say that, especially with the original cover. It's like, wow, alrighty, stunning. It's like, all right, no wonder she got scooped up early. And it's like, you pick up the book, it's like, oh yeah, all right. So there's a nice little a box of surprises. There's a metaphorical Pandora's box with this too.
A lot of people have this glamorized image of the 60s, and that we were all hippie, we were all free to love, everything was good, everybody was liberated, and that's pretty far from the truth. And so the 60s were a time of a great deal of repression and injustice, and it was against not only minorities, but minorities if you consider women, and it wasn't reported on, and it wasn't a part of everyday conversations. But violence against people of color, against women, and against the hippies, because we were a minority. So the book is quite different than I think people would think.
Oh yeah. Yes indeed, yes indeed. Definitely right. And it's good to get that other side of it too, and not the glamorized version, because I feel like that's the kind of the dangerous part of history sometimes that we may fall into if we even go back in time to certain parts of history. It's like, oh yeah, this time is freaking amazing. Like, yeah, peace and love, like the government, like take down the man. It's like, hey, there's some darker stuff going on at that time indeed. And heck, you even had a rough upbringing too, if I'm not mistaken, with your father, right?
Yeah, my dad was in the 60s. He was an undercover agent for the state of California, but before that, he was a intelligence operative for the U.S. government, for the military, for the army. And so I didn't realize it at the time, but I did much, much later, that he was suffering from PTSD, but he was incredibly volatile and violent, and I think was diagnosed as being paranoid schizophrenic. But it was also a product of his time, and there was nothing wrong with spousal abuse, and he beat my mother senseless many times in front of us. And when the police would show up, he'd just flash his badge and say, well, we had a little disagreement, but it's all okay. And they'd go away. So yeah, it was violent in the house and outside the house. So the 60s, even though we believed in peace and love and getting along and being good to people, not everybody was out there. What we were talking about before the show, I mean, the quote hippies, or as we called ourselves, freaks, were a very small minority of the people that were involved that were alive in the 60s. And as I joke and say, some of us went on to be writers and artists and creative people. The vast majority of us went on to be insurance salesmen. So, well, yeah, it was quite different. And for my dad, he really represented the establishment and what it was we were fighting against.
Uh, yeah, sorry to hear that. That's definitely rough hearing about that, and it's good that we're at least getting away from that, or at least putting more lighting on situations like that to try to help mitigate that going around the darn globe, because it's definitely rough. Like the whole spousal abuse thing, just really abuse, period, to be honest, is definitely bad. And that was just part of it. Like, was there anything else that made, because like with writing a book like this and having a life that you've lived, like what was probably the most difficult part of like really choosing which stories to add to this book?
Well, I think every writer has the situation, whether it's a memoir or whether it's fiction, and the stories you tell need to move the book forward. So there were a lot of stories or vignettes, as I call them, because I say that's how I remember the 60s. You know, something is crystal clear, nothing around it. But that event is happening. Yeah. So there are other vignettes that were left off because they didn't really move the story forward. To me, the job of any writer is to be honest, to be courageous. So probably the hardest part of writing the book was being honest about myself at that time and about the times and about my family and being honest about the fact, dealing with some of the rock stars like, Jimi Hendrix was probably the one of the kindest men I've ever met in my life, and Jim Morrison, when he was stoned, was an incredible poet, and when he was drunk he was a total asshole. It just, it was so, and it was difficult to write about a legend like that and be honest. And I don't know if I said this before, but my mother always said you don't have to be courageous if you're not afraid. So a lot of writing the book was just facing my fears and facing my past and being as raw and open as I could about the times. And not only how women were treated, but how men were treated, how people were, and what the times were truly like.
Uh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about indeed. I love the fact, classic quote from mom. It's like, hey, you don't have to be courageous if you're not afraid. That's right. So, fearless Donna, y'all. That's right. The fearless D herself.
Absolutely. So even though in the book you get a different picture of my mom, who was a drunk and did completely outrageous things, and things that you would think were not motherly, I got a lot of wisdom and strength from her. And later in life, learned a lot about my dad and made me far more appreciative of people who suffer from PTSD and the things he had to do, for the government. And I'm sure they were pretty horrific. And then he had to live with that the rest of his life. So I think he only knew how to be violent. And anybody that wasn't in his circle was his enemy.
Ouch.
Yeah. And I think we're seeing that now a lot with, if I could go into it, law enforcement. And it, to me, it's an us and them situation. And to me, it never is. It's us, and how do we work to understand each other? And this was something I think which was one of the most important things that I learned from the 60s is to set aside your labels, to set aside your expectations, and just try to let your guard down to see what the other person is really like and what they're doing. And I think we learned a lot of that from the civil rights movement, and the women's movement carried that forward in the 70s to say we're people, we're all people, and try to get away from judgments.
That's right.
I can say that now, but then anybody was over 30, you didn't trust them.
It's like, yeah, over 30,
There you
you
go.
ancient dinosaurs and
Oh.
darn log freaking makers and with your gavels. Like, yeah.
Yeah, you got it. Wow. Yeah, so it was a bizarre time. And, part of what I see today that a lot of what we fought for in the 60s, my generation, is present. Unfortunately, a lot that we fought against is also present today. But, the very fact that I can own a house, I can have a credit card in my own name, I can get a driver's license. My mom could not get a driver's license back in the early 60s unless my dad signed for her. It is so unbelievable to think that. And women couldn't get credit cards in their own name for a couple of decades after that. So all that is present, and that's good.
That's right. Helping folks on the rap. That's right. It's present. That's right. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. So, with your lovely parents that showed you some lessons as they aged and as you also aged and got some more wisdom, are there any 2 or 3 lessons that stick out to most from either one of them or heck, even both of them?
Good question. I would think from my mom, it would be 2 things. One, to be courageous, to keep going. That when you fall down, you stand back up, or you just stay down forever and you might as well die. And the other is, she said, to do no harm. So to be kind. And I think that's one of the guiding principles in my life now, is to try to be kind in my interactions with other people and with animals. So that from my dad, I think just dogged perseverance. Nothing just stopped this guy. I gotta tell you, until he got lung cancer, and then that stopped him. Of course, it stopped my mom too. Smoking, bad for you. But I think from my dad, just that dogged determination and the stubbornness. My dad was Prussian. He would never claim to be German. My mother was Irish. And they said I got the worst of both because I have a horrible temper and I never forget. So, yeah, I, I, I think that's it. You keep going. And, and you know what? Both of my parents in their own way were survivors. They overcame in their very later life. Well, they both died at 73. I'm 69 now, so it wasn't that late in life. It seemed very old to me at the time. But they both had fulfilled lives with friends and family by the end. And I reconciled with my dad at least 10 years before he died, and that was good because I saw a different perspective.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's right. So no smoking kids and have that dogged determination, y'all. That's right. That's right, indeed.
How was bad? It killed everything. Killed my sister too
Oh.
at 63. Small cell lung cancer. Bad stuff. Now, if you're smoking something else, I'm not going to talk about it. Tobacco. We're talking about smoking tobacco.
Yeah, well, that too, considering what else they got out here. And I don't even know all of it, and I don't want to know all of it. Because I don't even want to touch stuff. So stuff they got out here. If they're going to put roach spray on weed, like, I don't know, I'm good.
Oh God, I know. I can't smoke at all anymore. I can't even for doing the photograph on this when they were smoking a hash pin.
So also do harm to none. So does that mean you use a red pen when it comes to grading papers with your teaching?
Oh yeah. Now I look at that as not the kind of but I try to be kind. I try to be kind when I do critiques.
Yep.
I think for people that are teaching now writing, it's always good to go back and remember what it was like when you first started out. And to be kind. And, somebody, if you say, this is real crap, just, give up now. Nobody's going to move for you. And sometimes you think that, and it's just like, no. You find what is good in their writing and the talents they have, and you develop it. And I learned that in my book. What saved me is my high school English teacher, David Sundstrand. I'm going to give a big shout out to him. He's 85 now. And because of this book, I got back in touch with him after like 45 years. And he believed in me. And he knew right away that I was going to be a writer. And so I tried to use his method of pointing out what somebody's doing right. And use a written. Only now it's not a pen, it's word, review.
Oh yeah. Yeah, reading sometimes gives me a little PTSD for my English classes. Yeah,
Do you know I was a high school English teacher. Now you're scared. I was. I only made it for 2.5 years, but yeah, I taught high school English.
Yeah, yeah. One of the kids sitting behind me was just all fun and games. She's like, "Man, why's your paper bloody, man? All that red on there." I'm like,
I used to say it used to look like Custer's Last Stand when I would get papers back. Just like bodies, blood everywhere.
oh man. But yeah. So wow. High school teacher, Mr. David, my man's 85, alive and well and kicking. That's what I'm talking about. So, did you ever see yourself ever becoming an English teacher of all things, especially in the younger days in the 20s and 30s?
Well, I didn't when I was in the midst of the drug fueled, my freshman, sophomore year in high school, but then I got bumped out of what we used to call dumbbell English, where all my friends were. And I got booted up due to one teacher into college prep English. And it was total shell shock being in that class. But what it did was it engaged my brain. And then I had David Sundstrand as a teacher. And right then, after I would say the first semester, I said, this is what I want to do. So it was like right away, I thought I would always be an English teacher. By the time I was a junior in high school, I thought that would be the best thing I could do with my life. Then I got out of it. Then it was the reality of teaching, and I stopped.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, indeed. Sweet. So, with all this wonderful teaching, like, my goodness, you also picked up some research skills because the thing is, this wonderful memoir was therapy for you, but now you're going into the historical fiction route with the book about Mary Magdalene. So, what inspired her of all the characters? Is it because of popularity or was it something else?
It was the fact that she has been maligned so much, and she's always segregated to being a supporter, or what am I trying to say? She's always somebody who needed saving. Jesus needed to save her. He needed to cast out demons. He needed to, purify her. And then she came down throughout time as a repentant whore. And someone's model, and it's because it comes from Magdalene and is always weeping and moaning. And when I started looking into biblical research, it's like, no, she was an incredibly strong woman. And to be mentioned in this male dominated, male regimented religion that came out. And for her to even be mentioned meant she had to be somebody exceptional. And then I ran into Johnny Cosina, who is a Magdalene scholar, and she said, would you like to find out more about her? Come to France with me. And so I went there, and the more I dug into her life and saw papyruses and read about prophecies she had, I said, no, this woman was exceptional. And then I got into archaeology and found that the Canaanite or Hebrew goddess of Ashara was actually still worshipped according to archaeological digs into the Second Temple period. So it's like, let's see if we can work that into it. And the term Magdalene, she's never referred to as Mary of Magdalene. She's referred to as Miriam the Magdalene. And Magdalene in Hebrew, Magda, means exalted or high. So my premise, which I will back to the end of the earth, is that she was a high priestess of Ashara. And she lived at a time where she saw the eradication of goddess worship and the birth of a new religion. And that's pretty damn impressive. So that book, I'm trying to demythify the beginnings of Christianity and the people who were involved. Because I think a lot of myth has grown up around it and has been swallowed whole and needs to be looked at again.
Yeah, definitely true, especially oh yeah, nowadays where there's so much stuff out there, information and misinformation out there, and heck, even the fact that, funny enough, like the disciples themselves weren't even referred to as Christians back in the day when Jesus was alive with them. like,
Jesus wasn't a Christian. Jesus was Jewish. They were all Jewish. Excuse me. Well, they were all Hebrew. And I have in my book this statement that they were considered Hebrews, but to Rome they were in Judea. And so they were Judeo Jews. And I have in one statement in there, what will ever bring us together is some calamity where we're all known by one name instead of our tribes. And that happened during the diaspora. And they became known as Jews because Rome ruled the world. And they all came from Judea. It doesn't matter if you came from Galilee or any place else. So yes, there wasn't that. And at the time when Yeshua, would be his Hebrew name, was teaching, he was a fringe element on the side, teaching something that was really pretty hypocritical and a lot of times considered blasphemy. And to me, his message came down, and that's what the Magdalene is about too, is it's love. Back to my mom. If you want to tie it all together, do no harm. Be kind. Love people. Love is the most important virtue I think anybody can develop or nurture. So that's what this is about. And love comes in all forms. And so, as the High Priestess of Ashera, someone in my writing group tagged it as steamy biblical. So there's a lot of sensuality in the book.
yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine indeed. And you're so right about that, especially in the Bible itself, because if like usually the female characters, if their name is mentioned in the book, usually they have to be an exceptional human being indeed. Especially the Bible nowadays, where there's so many books that have been taken out of it and has been translated so many multiple times, and just doing all that research too for this wonderful upcoming book that you're gonna be doing. So my goodness, what's been your favorite part of the whole research process, and including the whole trip to France and going through the papyruses and just learning all about Mary and getting some extra time with your buddy?
My favorite
Oh
part
yeah.
is discovering and realizing that I can give voice to a woman who's been misrepresented. And if you go back to my book, House of the Moon, it's the same thing. I was misrepresented. I was marginalized as a woman, as a teenager, as a hippie. And it's like, let's do this for other people. I found my voice in House of the Moon. Let's give other women their voices. And so the Miriam, the Magdalene, has a chance through me to speak. And I don't mean that in a woo-woo, New Age kind of way. I mean, from archaeological evidence, from looking at demythifying the Bible and also the Torah, because I went through that, because this takes place before Christianity. So the most exciting thing was discovering what her life must have been like. And then we do have a book of Mary Magdalene that was removed from the Bible in first century AD. And in the next book in the series, The Lost and the Holy, is how she goes about writing that and writing her versions of the teachings, Yeshua's teachings. So that to me is still wonderful. It's still moving forward, still uncovering more.
Sweet. So taking the blankets off, that's what I'm talking about. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Oh, that is a good analogy. I like that. I'm going to use it.
Ah, good. All righty. The chocolate is being spread everywhere now. This is good.
Can't have too much chocolate. Or too much good red wine, which is another reason I liked Friends.
Well, then again, both got to be in some moderation. though. Can't just chocolate wine all day.
Oh, really? Oh, that's so disappointing. I'm going to not remember that one.
No surprise there. So, since you've been on this little mini interview tour in both written and spoken word, is there a question that you wish you be asked more often?
Oh. I think everybody is asking the questions that I want to be asked. Like, what is it? Or what is it that made you write? What is your favorite part of writing? And so I don't think the question so much, but something I would like for all writers out there, no matter where you are in your career, is to just acknowledge what we're doing is not only incredibly creative, it's brave, and it's something that we might take for granted. But not everybody can do what we do. We are, okay, we're going to go to Queen. We are the champions. We're the ones that go out there. Oh, yeah, we're going to get in there. I need the little black and white suit he wore. And, embrace that we are somehow special. That we can do this. We can take something out of thin air or out of years of research and spin it into a tale that people will love and learn from and grow from.
Ah, yeah, that's right. We are special, y'all. That's right. It don't matter how, if it's somehow or just how, y'all. We are definitely special indeed. That's right. That's right. We are the only well in the desert, y'all. Full of water. That's right.
And we're just wired different. We really are.
That's right. That's right. Donna, she runs on red wine and chocolate. Me, I run on corny jokes. So we're definitely wired different.
Hey, now I do corny jokes too.
Oh, good. All right.
Much more into the chocolate and red wine.
So what's the corniest joke in your arsenal?
Oh, you don't want
Yes,
to know.
I do.
You want to know?
Bring on the corn.
How can you tell when it's raining cats and dogs?
Meow.
When you step in a poodle. Pretty bad. You ask for it. You ask for it.
Yeah.
You can use that one. It's okay. I give you rights to it.
There we go. A corn cob a day keeps the groaning happening all day. Yeah.
Very good. Absolutely.
Well, since we're in a jolly mood, especially me, funny question I've been asking some folks recently. This is going to be interesting for you. So, if your particular book, House of the Moon, since I like to refer to books as mind food, if it was a particular food item, what would it be and why?
Oh, it's got to be some hash-laced brownies.
Yes.
Absolutely. You read it and you're there. And you want to know, how do I get out of here? And you just got to read through the end. But yeah, definitely.
There you go. The good brownies. With all the points. And they all point north.
And they all point north.
That's That's right. In more ways than one.
We're not going there.
But we're already there.
We are.
But don't worry, we're here now, too.
It's all in the mind.
Well, before I jump in any more rabbit holes with a pair of bunny ears this time around, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but this time you're in 2021 with all of your knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
In 2021?
Yep, you basically wake up tomorrow and your husband's considered a sugar daddy because you're 25.
Oh, yeah. If I had a sugar daddy, the vibe got it. Okay, we're there again.
Don't worry, I didn't have any hash before the interview.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, that's too bad. You could have shared. Make time to write more. It's vital, and so start sooner and write often. And I think in writing, you find your voice. You know, if I'd found my voice when I was 25 instead of when I was close to 50, my life would have been different, but my life has been as it should be. It's been wonderful. So, but I would like to start writing sooner. And in 2021 now, there are so many incredible markets for writers and genres and freedom to write whatever you want. And there really is no limit and no limitations on writers now.
Oh, yeah. That's right, folks. There's no limit, y'all. That's right. It's Cash Money Records 2000, baby. No limit records. Make that time for writing. That's right. Make that time for writing and write more, write often. Find your voice. You will find your Michelangelo statue in the marble somewhere, folks. I'm telling you. That's right, because Donna's found hers and she's creating more statues, y'all. I'm telling you. That's right. She's going to have her own Greek city in a few years with all the books that she's putting out there, y'all. That's right. That's right.
Absolutely. From your lips to the universe. It's going to happen.
That's right. It's going to happen with all the captains. That's right. She's going to have a crown on her head while it's happening, too, y'all. I'm telling you. That's right. Hashtag Queen Swag. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. But hey, that's just me still throwing some brownies on you. Don't worry. These aren't the Hashfield ones, though. I'm going to try to get away from that.
Keep them. Keep them.
Oh, God. I just realized hash-laden brownies. Hash brown. Alrighty. Well, before rabbit hole.
Oh, I didn't think of that. That's very good. Next time, okay. So next time I'm in a diner and I order hash browns, I'm going to think of you.
That's right. Potatoes are the new weed, y'all. That's right. That's right.
There is addicting. More so.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Instead of Idaho, it's Idaho Hold'em. That's right.
Okay. We're there again.
Well, I keep trying to transition, but the rabbit holes just keep appearing, and I just have to put on the bunny ears. So before I keep putting on the bunny ears, what's the best way for folks to put on their bunny ears and hop on to where they can find you and buy some copies of your books?
I'm going to tell you, this is really going to be difficult for everybody. DonnaConrad.com. Ooh. Even after hash brownies, you can find DonnaConrad.com. So you can get the books there. Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. I think Abe's books have them. So if you just go on and search for House of the Moon Surviving the 60s. Now, what is really bizarre, there is another Donna Conrad author out there who writes children's books. And one of her books is Goodnight Moon. So if you type in Donna Conrad House of the Moon, it comes up. And she and I have talked about it because children should not be reading my book. So, 'tis interesting. But there's a link on my website. And you can go there and then you can read some of my other work. I do a lot of flash fiction, which is great and fun and creative for writers out there. Try flash fiction. It is incredible to finish a story in 250 to 500 words, especially when you write 130,000 word tomes like I do now. So that, and then there's a lot about the Celtic Quarter Days on my website and the other facets of my work.
Well, there you have it, folks. Head over to DonnaConrad.com, y'all. I'm telling you. That's right. Check out some of her flash fiction, y'all. I'm telling you, with the Goodnight Moon and House of the Moon. If you open the door and you see a pair of cheeks, well, you know why they mention the moon in both of their books. It's called flash. Let me stop.
You gotta stop. Get a hold of yourself there, Don. Get a hold.
It's like, flash fiction has a whole new meaning now.
I did not put that together. Thanks. Along with the hash browns, I'm going to be thinking of that.
It's like, yeah, House of the Moon. It's like, oh, this is not what it's supposed to happen when you open the door. Oh, God. So anyway. Yep.
What's going on in your mind? It's just spinning. This is not a rabbit hole you're going down. What's so funny, you keep mentioning rabbit holes. The next article I'm doing for author.com is called Going Down the Rabbit Hole, because writers, I think creative people do it in general. But you start looking, one of my writers friends started looking for what was the pitch made out of on a sailboat in the 1700s. And he ended up in the 1300s discovering how steel was made into swords. And he's like, I still don't know how. It was like 4 hours later and he was in the 1300s with steel. And I do that all the time. It's those rabbit holes.
Sweet. So there you have it, folks. Send us carrots in the mail.
Find your own rabbit holes and go down them. You never know where you'll end up. Take the red pill.
Don't worry. They all lead to the Going North podcast. So any parting words before we close up shop, Donna?
No, this has been great. Thanks for doing these podcasts. It's wonderful to listen to authors and your engaging commentary and questions. So thank you. It has been quite entertaining.
Hey, you super special, awesome human. Thanks a bunch for listening to this podcast episode. Hope you really enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe to this show if you haven't already, because more greatness is coming your way. And if you're so inclined, be sure to share with at least 3 other people in your network, so that way more folks can catch the fire that is on the Going North podcast. Keep winning at life and advance others to advance yourself.